What is the way you like to invest 10,000 besides your own company, real estate, stocks, and high yield savings?
So you're asking what to do with your first $10,000.
Yeah.
So there's a few things that I would go through. First, I would eliminate all consumer debt. Then I would make sure that I have a rainy day fund, which would simply be an emergency fund. It would be enough money sitting in a accessible savings account that would cover a roommate bouncing unexpectedly, not being able to cover rent, would cover my engine going out in my car, having to get new tires. The average American right now can't afford a $500 expense. What's hilarious to me is when people hear that, many believe that is a result of the economy, when in fact that has everything to do with financial intelligence. That isn't because the economy is so hard. I love when people claim the economy is so bad when they rock $1,000 fucking iPhones and $500 Jordans. Fuck you. It's a prioritization issue, not a financial issue. Which isn't to say that there aren't issues and that we don't need to improve our financial system. We do. But when you believe this is out of my control, you're already screwed. Right? So first thing I do, I make sure I have an emergency fund. Second, I'm removing all consumer debt. So that'd be credit cards, car loans, things like that. The one thing I'd say is probably your mortgage. I wouldn't worry about, in most cases, paying off your mortgage. Obviously pay it on time, but paying it down, I wouldn't focus on that right away. Next, I would make sure that I have 12 months of salary saved, really 12 months of overhead saved. So whatever my overhead is, could I go 12 months without a paycheck? And then I'd go through a step-by-step process of building wealth. Step one, and really I'm doing this in tandem, but in sequence to your question. This would be going on from the very beginning, but I would be focusing on trading my time and energy, which is, when I'm younger, generally the resource I have more of, right? We generally have more time and energy when we're younger. So I would be trading my time and energy in the form of a high-value skill set, meaning a high-value problem. I can solve a high-value problem for active income. The better you are, the better result you get, the more you can charge, or the more you're going to make. So you want to get really good at solving high-value problems. Unfortunately, most people have been trained to solve low-value problems, and which is why they're getting their asses handed to them. Make sense? So for instance, if your job could be done by AI, you're in trouble. If an employer could hire somebody off the street that would do something close to or an approximation of the work that you're currently doing, you're in trouble, because you're very replaceable. And so you want to put yourself in a situation where the result you're getting is not easily replaceable. If it is, it's not a high-value skill set. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
So that's creating active income. Step two, you're going to take your active income, to your $10,000 question, and you're going to reinvest it back into assets. Your number one asset is you. So I would start by investing in you. What does that look like? Your development and growth. That could be seminars, that could be coaching and mentoring, that could be books, that could be courses, but you want to continue to develop your skill sets so that you're getting better and better at your craft. Next best asset after you is your business. The entire tax system in the United States is built on protecting businesses because the general belief is the more businesses we have, the more jobs we have, which is mostly true. So I would start my own business just for the tax benefits. Step three, take your assets and convert them to non-active income. So as I develop my assets and I invest in the right ones, the goal is to create non-active income, meaning I am deploying dollars as employees to go work on my behalf. The better I get at that, the more money I make, the more free I am financially.
Would that be the same as passive income?
I don't use the word passive too much because I like to use the word non-active on purpose because there are very few things that are actually passive, where you just sit it and it brings in more money without you having to do anything. Non-active means you are not directly trading your time and energy for that labor, or for that result rather. So they're close.
Okay.
You could exchange it and probably wouldn't screw it up too much. But just a lot of people are seeking passive income and then they're confused when they don't achieve it. It usually takes some guidance.
What habits can you add to transition from life is happening for me to by me?
I was talking about this in crew meeting, where a lot of people get stuck is they make the jump to life is happening for me, but it's more like a posi-neg for me. In other words, they'll respond with like this attitude of, well, it's just a lesson I got to learn, or lesson learned. but they're not actually doing the work of integrating the lesson. It's just a more positive way of accepting what's happened. So I'm going to start there because this isn't your direct question, but I want to create the frame correctly. So this person will sound like they get it because their way of coping what would happen is there's a lesson to learn here, or lesson learned, I'll never do that again, but they're not really integrating the lesson, and it isn't coming from a place of gratitude and hope. It's coming as a coping mechanism for what's happened. So they may be more palatable in the way that they deal with things that happen in their life, but it's not really changing their life because they're not integrating the work. Truly understanding for me is integrating the lesson in a way that bears fruit. And you know it's bearing fruit because you're making different decisions. Simple example. Hey, you used to drink beer all the time. You don't drink beer anymore. Yeah, I always feel really gross and bloated and like puffy when I drink it. Versus, oh, I know I shouldn't drink this, but see the difference? Yeah. So a lot of people do that and they're thinking that's for me. It's like, well, no, for me is the integration of the work. And so there are lessons that come up in life that we get to learn, and the first time, more often than not, they're fairly gentle. And unfortunately, humans don't listen often when they're gentle lessons, right? So for instance, maybe the first time we drive slightly inebriated, and somebody goes, hey, let me drive you home. Or like, let me call you an Uber. You're like, no, I'm good. And you get home. And so then you're like, oh, that wasn't too bad. The gentle reminder was somebody going, hey, this isn't a good idea, but you didn't listen. Worse, because you didn't listen and nothing happened, what's your next assessment? I can do that. It's okay. And then somewhere along the way, it gets way worse, right? And something really bad happens. And then what happens? More often than not, we listen. No, I've seen enough background checks in my company with people with 2 or 3 DUIs that there's still something that isn't clicking, and it's mostly because whatever is on the other side of that is more important to them than the pain. But the point is like, there are very few lessons that happen that we didn't get a tester lesson early. We just didn't listen, right? Maybe you date somebody and your friends go, all bad. And you're like, yeah. You had an opportunity to like take the poison out of the veins there, but you didn't listen. And then 6 months later, you're like, oh my God, why did I not listen? And so the for me in those lessons, it's like, this is hard to accept, but some of the most painful lessons we go through are actually loving expressions. They're merciful in their act, in which you said you wanted to be something more. You said you wanted to grow and learn. And so the universe conspires with you to create the conditions that are necessary for you to wake the fuck up. Some people will hear that and go, oh, they don't even know what to do with that. That seems all kinds of bad. These are the same parents that tell their kids that they can do no wrong and that they're perfect no matter what they're doing. Right? Anybody who has kids knows you are loved no matter what you're doing. Yeah. Right. So like there are consequences for actions. I know. We live in a world that would like to tell you that isn't true, but there are consequences for actions. And so the for me is really beginning to accept those consequences and integrate life in a way in which you are avoiding some of that, right? By just making different choices. For me to buy me happens fairly naturally as you begin to realize as you make different choices, your life begins to change. In other words, your through line, your clarity starts to get really potent so that there is very little delay between that which you want and that which you are, which means you create much faster because all of the emotional arbitrage and all the bullshit is getting cleaned out. And the cleaner that gets, the faster you begin to create in the world. And so my experience has been, by me is the natural result of integrating the for me. Because as you remove the stuff that is holding you back, the natural result is what you want. Because what you want and what you are aligned.